Hi, welcome to Nourishment Connection. I'm Angela. As part of my Cook With Me series, today we're going to make a healthier pie crust. So, this pie crust recipe, which I will post online so you can find it with the recipes, you can make with unsalted butter or with non-dairy butter substitutes. And I do a combination of Earth Balance and butter flavored non-hydrogenated shortening. So, to get started, I have my flour. I'm using white spelt flour. You can use whole grain. This is 1 1/4 cups because I am just doing a 1 crust pie. And that is going to be a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. The baking powder is used as a little leavener. You can use apple cider vinegar. I just like baking powder. This is a pastry blender and it's a very important tool when you're making a pie crust. Once you have those dry ingredients just kind of stirred together, you put your fat in. Now, your fat, you really want to be as cold as possible, which is pretty easy to do with unsalted butter or with your Earth Balance because you're going to keep those in the fridge. It's a little bit tougher with a shortening because you typically don't keep that in the refrigerator. It's one of the reasons why when I make the vegan crust, I like to mix them together. Now, when you do your pastry blending, all you're doing is you're cutting your fat into your dry ingredients and you come out with like these little like pebbles. They kind of like pea-shaped is what it does to the fat. It almost looks like a crumble topping. And the reason why I call this a healthier pie crust is because I'm using 4 tablespoons of fat in this recipe. And a typical pie crust is going to use about 6 tablespoons of fat in this recipe. So it's using about 2/3 of the fat. You could cut it down to as much as 3 tablespoons of fat. You could cut it in half. It still does work. I find that if you cut it that much, you really start to sacrifice the flavor and the texture. So I feel like cutting it down to 4, I still can get a really tasty pie crust that has great texture. And it's pretty much just as delicious, and then I don't feel as guilty because I'm not having as much fat. So you can see that process didn't take as long, and I'm kind of left with something that looks like this. It almost looks like a crumble topping when you're doing something like a streusel topping. Okay, all right. The next is your water that we're going to add. This is super cold water, and that's another important tip. And this is going to take about 6 to 8 tablespoons. I'm going to start with 4, and I put them right in, and I mix with my hands because I want to feel what the dough is like. I know I'm going to need more. After I do 4, I just do 1 at a time. Now I find that the vegan crust takes less water than the butter crust. Because at 5 here, I'm pretty set. I might need a little bit more, but this feels like it's coming together. And with a butter crust, you usually need close to 7 to 8. And this is about what that should look like. And if you need a little bit more to come together, I just put a little on my fingers and give it a little pat and a little love. Now, you're going to want to chill your pie crust before you roll it out. 30 minutes in the fridge or 10 minutes in the freezer. So all I do is I get a piece of parchment, I'll flatten it a little bit in a disc, and then I'll cover it. Now, I have pie crust that I've already made, because again, I like to pretend that I'm already on a cooking show. And this is what it will look like once it's chilled. You can see how much it's firmed up. So this would be one I would just wrap it up like so, and it's going to go in the fridge. Now, when you want to roll it out, here's a tip from Graham. Thanks, Graham. I keep my flour in my sifter, and see how it just spreads that out nicely. And when you roll out pie crust, you just wanna try and roll it evenly in all directions so you can keep it as much in a round shape as possible. And you also want to keep it moving so it doesn't stick on the one side. So you have to kind of keep flouring it, and you have to keep moving it. So you can see that this is rolling out really nicely. And while you do have to stretch it, and you can't be afraid of it, you can't be too rough with pie crust. It's not like a yeasted dough that you punch and you push and you pull. Pie crust needs a lot of love, and it's something that is, it requires a lot of gentle care. Now your pie crust, you can roll as thick or as thin as you like. They even have little bands that they sell that you can put on the ends to get even thickness. Now to test, do I have enough dough? I just put my pie dish like that, and that tells me that I do. And so I just roll this up like that, and then I just unroll it like that. And then you just let it kind of fall in, and it finds a tappy place as it falls in, like so. And then, you can trim your edges. I roll mine and create a pretty little edge all along the side. And you can do whatever you want to do with your edges. And if you have a little extra and you don't need it, just tear it off. It's no big deal. And that's how easy pie crust is. And you don't have to buy the frozen brand. So this video is dedicated to Grandma, who taught me how to make pie crust when I was 9, and I'm still making it. And you have a beautiful pie crust for yourself. So thanks, Graham, and that's a little healthier recipe for you. Check it out online.